I think we'll get started. There may be, some people trailing in, and if you want to get up and do whatever you need to do, please feel free to. So thanks everybody for being here right after the holiday, kicking off the new year, 2014. I think you all know me, but I'm Kristen Wharton from the Sawtooth Mountain Clinic. I'm a nurse there, and I coordinate a lot of different community health programs, including the two probably that bring us together today, which is the statewide health improvement program and our new Moving Matters project. And so thanks everybody again for being here. We are trying to be pretty timely, honoring your time and being done on time and that sort of thing. So that's why we're going to get started. And the format for the day, I think you probably saw agendas coming in, pretty straightforward. I'm going to go through a little PowerPoint while you're eating, just to kind of bring everybody up to speed on a little bit of the background, sort of a historical timeline of what has led us to where we are today. And then Andy Hubley from ARDC is here to facilitate the remainder of the meeting. And I hope you all know that we consider this meeting one of at least 5. So we've got scheduled dates out through May for future meetings. Let's see, I think if you read emails, which I don't assume that people do, then you also might have an idea that we recognize everybody that's here today can't necessarily attend every meeting, or there may be other people rotating through. So as much as possible, I think that these conversations will build upon each other, and so it will be very helpful to have a core group of people that are able to attend meetings, but we know the reality of everyone's time. So as you can see, we're videotaping these so that people can stay up to speed on what's happened if they aren't able to attend all of the meetings. We'll also be editing short summary versions that are not an hour and a half long, so we can use those as well as a simpler, shorter way to stay up to date. Let's see, does anybody have any questions right off?
Where are you going to post the videos?
The videos will be posted on the project website, which is listed on your one-page sheet. It's not the agenda, it's the other sheet, and it's the address is becausemovingmatters.org. But we'll also send them out following these meetings with minutes as well. So you won't have to search out that piece of paper every time. All right. No other questions? Okay, so I just wanted to provide this short, hopefully short, video time, like picture timeline basically, to get everybody on the same page as far as the sort of relevant background. And as I was putting this together, I realized that actually was a monumental task, that I didn't even have all of the resources to actually give a full representation. So my disclaimer is that there's a lot more that has happened in the last 10 plus years that contributes to why we're here today talking about active living than is represented. But these are some high points at least. I know that things were left out, so I hope nobody takes offense or feels that there's no intention of snubbing anyone here. And just off the top too, we're going to talk with Andy in a little bit about how do we define active living, or what does that mean. But just from a real bird's eye view, the way that I think of active living is just how do we incorporate physical activity into our daily lives. So that depends on where you live, who you are, what your physical ability level is, your age, all these types of things. But it could be things like it could be like bringing in wood for the wood stove. It could be walking to work or biking to work. It could be going up and down stairs in your house. It really depends on the individual. But that's the idea is it comes back a lot to walking and biking. And sometimes that's recreationally, and sometimes it's for transportation. All right, so going way, way back, I was just reflecting on the fact that how much this idea of active living or active lifestyles are such a core actually of who we are here. My family has roots on the North Shore outside of Two Harbors in Larsemont. If any of you know where Larsemont is, where the old schoolhouse is, just right down the shore from there is where my family's mom and pop resort is located. And I was just reflecting back on that sort of my own history on the shore and the active roots there. And I think a lot of us share those type of roots. But active lifestyles really have always been a part of the cultures that have lived in this area, the history of who we are here. And these pictures are so cool. Many thanks to the Historical Society. This is a picture, I don't know how well you can see it from back there, but this is the Grand Marais Harbor. And this is like a community baseball game. Isn't that cool? Yeah. And then that's some wood clearing. So, it's part of who we are, it's part of our culture. These are some gals skiing, fishing up in the Boundary Waters. This is another baseball team. And this, I'm told, is the pre-Highway 61. And it's just, it's really fundamentally defined by this place that we all live, work, and play. So that's sort of just going way back. But between then and now, a lot has happened that makes active living a lot easier in a lot of ways, but there are also new challenges, and things are much more complex. So jumping way ahead to recent history, there's just been so much going on throughout Cook County and Grand Portage that contributes to where we are today, here today, having this conversation about how we can work together to sort of institutionalize the things that we're already doing that make it safer and easier for people to walk and bike and be active. And also maybe we can identify some loopholes or areas that are ripe for a new partnership. So, I'm going back like about 10, 15 years here to start with. And the Gitchigami Bike Trail, late 90s, early 2000s, certainly played a role in where we are here today. Comprehensive community planning, this is just an example from the town of Tofty's plan, community plan, and it's really interesting. So what it says right here is that the town will support actions that retain Highway 61 as a 2-lane highway with the following characteristics. So this is 2005, almost 10 years ago. This is not a new conversation. We've been having this conversation. So areas outside of the town center, the Tofty Town Plan says they'd like adequate shoulders for safety and maneuvering, reduce speed zones in developed areas. They'd like paths for bicycling, inline skating, walking, and similar means of transportation within the corridor. So, then we fast forward to 2013 and we're still having that conversation in Tofty and throughout the county. Again, this is just another example out of Tofty's community plan, which has really some really great ideas in it. In their town center, they're looking at curbs, gutters, sidewalks, pedestrian lighting, bicycle paths, designing for a speed of 30 miles an hour for automobiles, and providing pedestrian access across Highway 61 through an overpass or underpass. So again, just looking back at where we've come from. In 2006 and 2007, Cook County, through the Community Health Board for this whole region, received some grant funding through this Active Living Minnesota, which was a Blue Cross Blue Shield funded effort. And in Cook County, but also in the counties of the region, they came up with, many of you were part of this, came up with an Arrowhead Active Living vision statement. And that just says, the Arrowhead is a vibrant and healthy region where well-designed communities embrace and encourage physical activity for all people. And then it goes out to break that out into more action steps as well. In 2009, Grand Portage started up their current community gardens. I hope I've got everything right on this. Please correct me if I don't. Community garden maybe sounds more like food, but it's also a way to incorporate physical activity into your life, particularly for people with mobility issues or that sort of thing. It's sort of a low impact opportunity for physical activity. So I throw that in because it's still just flourishing today from my understanding. In 2009, the Safe Routes to School effort was kicked off here in Grand Marais, and that really focused on ISD 166 and Great Expectations schools. And that was kind of initiated when the sidewalk was put in on County Road 7 here in the school zone. So it went hand in hand, but through that work, we worked, I guess, with the ARDC at that time as well, and looking at things like in-school education for kids on bicycle safety, walking safety, and then also things outside of the school day, like encouraging walking to school and that sort of thing. So there was some activities that you could say were happening around that. And then there were also surveys. This was a parent survey, and this is issues that affect decisions to allow or not allow walking or biking to school. So the parents filled this out. And the top 4 concerns, which probably don't surprise any of you, were number 1, distance. You know, the vast majority of students that attend school in Grand Marais are bused in from over 2 miles away. Traffic speed and volume affected 66%. So that's, you know, the distance is not necessarily something that this group would be doing something about, the distance of where people live. But the traffic speed and volume is definitely something that we have been looking at with Safe Routes to School, and I think many of you have been working on that. And then the third highest percentage issues were crime and weather. So those kind of survey information guided the work of the Safe Routes to School group. With that group, we created a plan in 2010, which was then adopted in 2011 by the ISD 166 School Board and the GES School Board, and it was also presented to the City of Grand Marais. And here's the top 4 goal areas. So again, this is all really broad language. Improving traffic speeds around the school zones to increase safety for students walking and biking. Improving traffic volumes around the schools and the community. Improving safety of street intersections. And communicating with and further involving community members and partnering entities in the Safe Routes to School program. So what we realized when we were working as a Safe Routes to School committee, we realized very early in the process that the school doesn't exist in a bubble. The school is part of the city, is affected by county roads, and all these different things came into play. So from these types of conversations and planning processes with the Safe Routes to School group, we then, that group of people started to think a little bit broader, like we actually need to pull in more people to this conversation. It's not just about the school. So now we're up to 2010-2012. The Cook County Local Energy Project worked with, again, I think a lot of the folks in here were part of that process, and to create this local energy plan. The plan was then adopted by the city and the county in 2012, and one of the goal areas, number 8, is to promote energy efficient transportation. So strategy 8.1 says encourage pedestrian and bicycle transportation. And then this is 8.1b that we highlighted here. It just talks about promoting the development of multiple use streets. And I think that is where this conversation has been going as far as like the Active Living Steering Committee and other groups outside of that within the community. That's where we've been looking at, is how do we promote multiple use streets, because or at least because from my point of view, our streets and our roads occupy a huge area of our public lands. And so we know that primarily those spaces have been approached as a place to move automobile traffic in recent history, but there are also other people using that area. You know, there's a lot of people on bikes now is like the big thing, and people walking, and then our community is aging. At the same time, we're trying to attract young families, and all of those things come together on our roads and streets. (2009) again to 11, we welcomed funding from the Minnesota Department of Health through the statewide health improvement program, and that kind of got on the coattails of the Safe Routes to School work. So the Safe Routes to School committee was then able to be coordinated by myself, and we had a little bit of staff funding there to help make some of these things happen. So jumping back, I guess, to some of those Safe Routes to School things, here's a bike safety rodeo. We held those in 2010, 11, 12, and 13 in Grand Marais here. And then, do you remember the goal area of reducing traffic speeds in the school zone? Well, this is a picture of, not sure who that is, maybe somebody here recognizes. But this is someone who got pulled over in the school zone. My cell phone camera. So, and then this is, and I should say, I should really talk about that more because that was a really huge deal. Sheriff Falk just basically said, yeah, this is really important that we really enforce speeds in the school zone in the morning because that's one of the busiest roadways in our whole county during that particular time of day. And so he actually changed the whole staff, their whole staff timing, the time they start shifts. They changed that to be an hour earlier. I believe it had been 8 to 8, and then he moved it to 7 to 7 in order to be able to have an officer there to patrol to enforce speeds in the school zone. So that was like one decision that he made that had huge implications for encouraging safety and enforcing speeds in that area. And then down here we've got the, what's this one called, Dave? Right, but this, is it just a blower? Yeah. So this is the county highway department's newish skid steer with a blower on it, and this is County Road 7 and that through town there in the school, the new it isn't so new anymore sidewalk. So, you know, there's a county statewide health improvement program, and then there was also a Grand Portage statewide health improvement program, and clearly I'm sort of focusing on the county one because that's the one that I happen to work with, and I don't have as much information about all the details of Grand Portage, but all the way along that, you know, through our Safe Routes to School down here and through our SHIP in the county, I know Grand Portage has also been doing a lot of good work right along the way, not exactly the same type of things, but doing good work in the same areas. Oh, here's one thing. So this is a topic that's, I know it's been talked about and worked on for a while now in Grand Portage, which is the idea of a walking trail along the road through the village, because what I'm told is that a lot of people of all ages, kids especially, use that area, and it's just really not, there's just really nowhere for people to go safely. So that, I believe, is something you guys have in the works now to actually start building next summer, maybe? This spring, yeah. So that's a great example of a huge, I mean, that'll be a huge deal. Just a little bit more SHIP. We got some bike racks downtown, the clinic, and also partnering with the SHIP group and the Active Living Committee have done these Move It Matters, no. What is it? Move it, that's right. Move it in May. Move it in February. I'm confusing myself. This is our newest one, just to confuse everyone. Moving It Matters. And this logo here, Healthy Northland, Andy will talk about that a little bit later, but it can be really confusing for me even who works in this, trying to figure out all these different grant sources of these projects that we're doing. And so at the CHB, the Community Health Board at the regional level, they are also feeling that sort of confusion, and so we're trying to move, or the CHB is moving to this one kind of branding or this idea of Healthy Northland, and there's a lot of different funding sources for that, but trying to keep it simple, or try to. So I talked about the Safe Routes to School group, and we started to realize that, you know, it wasn't just about the school zone, that there were a lot of connections there, important connections to consider outside of just the immediate school zone. And that, when that conversation started happening, it sort of spawned off this this sister group to the Safe Routes to School, which we call the Active Living Steering Committee. And this group meets monthly. We've been meeting monthly since 2011, and the Safe Routes group's meetings coincide quarterly. So because it's a lot of the same people. And the mission or statement of this group is really simple. It's more people, more active, more often. And this was, this chart here is from actually the very first meeting that we had in 2011 of the steering committee members. And we were answering this focused question of what is important to create, support, and sustain opportunities for active living in Grand Marais. And I think actually the answers that we came up with in 2011 have really kind of held up over time. We've done different versions of this activity over the years with different groups of people, and we sort of, the information seems to come back to the same type of answers, which are, so what do we need? We need common cultural acceptance, and that might be things like, having more time or a walking school bus every day, or the idea of this cultural shift in people's minds away from relying upon their cars for every single trip. We need fun and visible activities like the Move It in February, that type of thing, maps, events. We need ongoing dedicated resources. So that's stuff like staff time, money, maintenance, equipment, financial support to develop and maintain what we already have, or maybe sometimes it might include additional infrastructure. Year-round adaptable environments. We want to have well-planned accessible infrastructure and ongoing useful information or education. Diverse coordinated efforts, so that we talked about, is this a vision that's part of a county plan? Is this, are we collaborating, communicating, and also compromising as we work through these things? Are people hearing the value of active living from different angles, not just always from like the clinic, for example, or public health? Are we hearing the value of it economically or for community pride, or for different reasons? And then demonstrated community involvement. So we may come back to that a few more times through this process, but I guess what I would like to ask you all, and it's on your one-page paper, not the agenda, the other one, is just those different headings are listed at the bottom of the page. And I would just ask you to think about, maybe it's right now or maybe it's another time, but just think about the work that you do and what brings you here today. And just think about, what are you already doing that supports active living in your work? And what ideas do you have? What opportunities are out there for areas that we could do more or better? Or just do things a little different that gives us the same type of results. Uh-oh. All right, a couple other slides here. In 2011, the City of Grand Marais passed a resolution of support affirming active living commitments. And that didn't, I guess it states it here. You might not be able to read it, it's kind of small. And you don't have to read it. But it just talks about maintaining a cohesive pedestrian and sidewalk plan, attention to key connections between schools, businesses, recreational facilities, and neighborhoods. Considering enhancing pedestrian or bicycle travel in city planning and design activities, supporting programs that encourage active living, increasing the measures for pedestrian and bicycle safety in the school zones, and these sort of things. So it was just a statement of a general, I think a general feeling of support for this type of work. Okay, we're almost there. We're almost up to today. So the Cook County Active Living Summit came in November 2012. And this actually, I think, was sort of a watershed moment for the community, because we'd been having this conversation in small groups, all over the place. In November 2012, we had an opportunity to actually have a lot, not everybody of course, but a lot of the people that had been thinking about this or valuing this came together in one room. And we had 75 people attend that day. So there was a lot of really good conversation. There was a lot of good, it provoked a lot of thought. And also we asked people what, you know, we kind of had that grid that we had come up with as the Active Living Steering Committee in 2011, about a year and a half before. And so we kind of wanted to hear, well, where's this group of people at, and what do they think about these ideas? Is it at all similar? Are we on the right track? And this represents the kind of a consolidated, it's like a pre-vision, I guess you could say, that came out of that summit. And these were the themes that came out. So the themes that people told us at that group was active lifestyle is the norm. Like, this is sort of where we hope to get to, where active lifestyle is the norm. That there's a lot of education involved early and often, and it's integrated into our institutions. Very strong connections, safe routes for all people. That just came out time and time again, that it's really great to have a sidewalk on County Road 7. But if you don't have then a way to safely connect to downtown Grand Marais, or for example, from the community center here over to the Birchwood Apartments, then that piece of sidewalk is invaluable. But if it doesn't connect all the way, then those are things we need to pay attention to and hopefully prioritize or add in over time. People said we need buy-in from the policymakers. There were a lot more sort of average citizens there than there were elected officials, and people who were saying, we got to make sure that we're not just saying this to each other one-on-one, that the people that are in leadership positions are hearing this as well. And then there's also this sort of hodgepodge category that we called healthy amenities. And people were talking about things like, we need more bike racks, and we want a centralized green space to play Frisbee, or we want places for people to gather, we want a boardwalk along the lake, we need bathrooms downtown, these types of things. So that's what this piece is. And then following when people left, we gave them an evaluation, and we asked them to fill it out, and 20 people did. So that's a small response rate. It's about 26% of the people who attended. But that's what we have to go on right now. So this was one question we asked them. We asked them, would you like the Active Living Steering Committee to work on any of these projects? And we listed a whole bunch of projects, and then we had an other. And this one right here was number one of those 20 responses. 13 people said, we want the Active Living Steering Committee to work on a countywide active living plan. And 11 people said we want complete streets kind of concept in Grand Marais or in the townships. And 10 people said we want pedestrian and bicycle safety in the school zones. And you can kind of see these others. So we kind of debriefed, the Active Living Steering Committee did after the summit. And we said, like, okay, we had this great event. We gathered a lot of people excited. Now what do we do? What do we do now? And we looked to this evaluation information to sort of help guide us, as well as the people around the table and what they were also interested in. And that was one of the first concrete steps of bringing you all together today. So following that, the City of Grand Marais received a Bicycle Friendly Community Award, bronze level in 2013. That sort of is a testament to the work that has been done, but I think we all know that there's a lot left to do, especially in Grand Marais and throughout the county, to really have safe places for people to bike and walk and just be active.
And even though it's bronze, it's a really big deal. I mean, not everybody just gets that.
That's true. I think we're tied with one other community for the smallest in the country, the smallest city that's ever received that level of award. If that's, that means a lot to some people and not much to others.
Obviously, it does.
So I just threw that one in because I had a nice picture. And then, more recently, Moving Matters is our new project. It's the new name, but it's the same thing we've been doing all these years, funded through the clinic by Blue Cross and Blue Shield. And what we're all about, it's a county-wide project through the clinic that's working to create safe and accessible walking and biking routes for all people. And by all people, what we're talking about is looking at people that have mobility issues, people of all ages and that sort of thing. And sometimes that makes people nervous because they think that I'm saying we need a sidewalk on every road and it has to be ADA accessible and it has to be ice-free in the middle of an ice storm, and that's not what we're saying. What we're saying is we need to think about this. We need to plan for this, and we know it's not always going to be 100% perfect or sometimes even possible. But if we don't think about it and plan for it up front, it doesn't always happen. Okay. Can I have 5 more minutes? Because I have a video I want to show you. I'm going to show you a video. Oh, wait. Let's see. Okay, before I show you the video, I just want to throw this in. This is our funding for this project, comes mainly from Blue Cross and Blue Shield. And then there's a little bit of the funding that just, complements that with the SHIP grant and the clinic too. Maybe I'll just finish up before I show you the video here. Okay, so that basically brings us up to today, and here we are. And thanks again. I know I've been talking for a while. What's written here is also on your handout, and it's what you all received via email or snail mail and hopefully you saw this in different ways. But I just want to read through it because just so that hopefully everybody understands the idea of why we're all here today. So, and I'll address a few things after I read it, but what you all received is that this committee aims to create a policy or policies for Cook County, the City of Grand Marais, Grand Portage Reservation, and any interested townships. So that part can change because it's an open invitation for anybody who wants to be a part of this. But then this part right here is really the meat of it, which is why are we here? We're here to talk about how can we fundamentally address our planning and our prioritizing of safe and accessible spaces for people to walk, bike, and be physically active on our roads and streets. And when it says Cook County, that means the geographic area of Cook County and Grand Portage Reservation. It just means this place. So that's really the meat of why we're here, is how, we know this is important, and we know that we know it's important to a lot of our leaders. We know it's important to people, average people and different groups, but that alone isn't enough to make it happen. And there's a lot that's been happening already, as you can see. I can't even cram it all into 15 minutes. So we're here to just talk about how do we sort of fundamentally shift how we operate so that it's part of the consideration in the planning process up front, rather than as like an expensive afterthought. And then lest you should think that we are on the cutting edge and the only ones doing this. This is just a really quick summary of the region, just to let you know that this idea of active living policies or plans or that sort of thing, it's being done in this area. It's not anything new to us. Duluth has a complete streets policy. Moose Lake is updating their comp plan, and they're working on including a lot of these active living values. Barnum is updating their zoning code, again addressing safe routes to school and other active living issues. Grand Rapids incorporated active living language pretty strongly into their comp plan, and they're now working with Itasca County to try to figure out how to do that more so outside of just their city limits. International Falls is working on it, Hibbing's working on it, Cloquet's working on it. So you can see that we're not alone here. Here's our staff, myself and Maren Webb. Maren's working on the project as well. So we're both contact people for the committee or for anything that you have project related. Okay, so I have a 4-minute video I want to show you that isn't me talking, but it's from this workshop that we've started to do. We take it out. It's our road show now. We're taking it on the road, and it's called Planning Through Play. And that sounds silly, and it is a little bit. It's really fun. So this was a anyway. I'll just show you the video.
On behalf of the Moving Matters Project, thank you for being here and bringing wonderful food. So we're going to take 20 minutes first that you guys are going to build, and then we're going to talk a little bit about what does a walkable, bikeable community look like.
Distance to walkable, public
Oh yeah, yeah.
I just have this thing, well, Tom and I use carpool, but even if I have my car, I never drive.
I know, 3 blocks. Yeah. I think that's been about time. Does everyone kind of gather back around? So, what end of the table wants to start? Tell us what you built.
I know there's a lot of elders in our community that like to get out and do stuff, but their only option is to go down to the community center and walk around the gym. I think if there's a safer environment, like the bike walking path away from the road a little bit, maybe have little rest areas where they can have a place to catch their breath, or just, you know, a little designated spot they can meet up with, you know, just go take a little quarter-mile walk, just something to get them out and about.
I think about the tourists that are often walking across the street and don't pay any attention to cars at all. That if we somehow had even some sort of lighted walk sign, like walk now, and it had some sort of timing, it would help both pedestrians and cars avoid the confusion of, oh, are they crossing the, oh, no, they're not. Oh, wait, oh, yeah, they are. And so the back and forth of that being kind of a dangerous situation.
If we had like one side of the road be a bike lane and then one side be a sidewalk, and have the bike lanes be placed so there's not too many like houses or businesses right in front of it, and the bike lanes could be wider for snowmobilers too.
It's also important to include all ages of the population, because some ideas I've heard like would not work for the elderly, you know, things like that.
You know, I do a lot of running around the county. I run long distance and that. I dress up so people can see me from space. You know, I think infrastructure in the community takes time, and there's a lot of red tape and bureaucracy. You know, I think as pedestrians we have to be super defensive and kind of spread that defensive pedestrian and respectful motorist mentality.
I cross Highway 61 a lot. I walk everywhere. Every time I go on an outing, I have young children with me, and I'm generally not going to be able to hop into a busy or possibly dangerous situation just to get around on bike or on foot. So like having wider areas for that, or more appropriate sidewalks.
We're calling this project Moving Matters, and it's really about working with the community countywide to look at safety and accessibility for people walking and biking. And that, you know, that means a lot of different things to different people, but where we live is really important to us, I think, is pretty safe to say across the board. One piece of our project is working with these elected folks, and then the other piece of the project is working with the community. We're trying to show these boards of elected people that actually the community really does care about this issue, and it shouldn't be an afterthought. It ought to be part of how our transportation system is planned and how it's, you know, evaluated, or how they look at what projects get done and where. And that doesn't mean it has to cost extra money, but just looking at including the needs of people. So that's what we're doing. That's the type of thing we're doing out in the community, and then we're going to try to funnel that information back to this group and to more than just this group, as a way to have feedback from the public. But don't worry, we're not promising them anything. I know that doesn't mean they don't think we are, but we're trying to just have the conversation. So my time is just about well over. And thank you all. Hope that helps at least bring you up to where we are today. I asked Gwen Danfelt to come in. She's part of the Active Living Steering Committee when she can get there. And just to give you one more little testimonial sort of about the real life impacts that this type of stuff has on people's lives.
Yeah. My name's Gwen Danfelt, and I'm here as a local citizen, but mainly as the director of Cooperation Station Daycare. So we know that being active is really important for early child development. We don't have a bus or van to get kids around, so whenever the weather is like 30 above or good, we are always walking. We're, once they're 2, once they can walk, we're teaching them how to hold hands with a partner, how to look both ways when they cross the road. We walk down to the library, to the beach, up to the park over here, so all the time. But we are located on 5th Avenue, which is a busy street because it connects with the old Gunflint Trail down to the highway, and cars go quite a bit faster on that street than they do on the other residential streets. But it is a residential street. The courthouse is on there. So basically, we definitely, every time we go out, we see a need for a sidewalk specifically on 5th Avenue. We just moved to other more residential streets, but we would love to have a sidewalk specifically on that street. Similar to on 1st Avenue, going down from the school, the city realized it was important to have a sidewalk for kids to walk back and forth to school, and that's great. 5th Avenue, besides the daycare, across the street from us, there's a small apartment complex, and I see people every day walking to work, to and from there in all weather. I see a lot of people walking their dogs, and then I do see some older kids walking to school every day. And then you guys know where the Birchwood Apartments is too. They would probably, if there was a sidewalk on 5th Avenue, they would probably come down and use it more. I'm not sure if they use 8th Avenue, which doesn't have a sidewalk either, but anyways, a stroller would love a sidewalk. And small children is really useful, and it wouldn't have to be everywhere, but we'll be out there anyways, so yeah.
Okay, so I think we made the point that there's a lot that's been going on for a long time. This was just a snippet of it. There's a lot of people that this type of work impacts, and we know it's not easy, and we know that money in particular is a big issue. So we aren't going to solve all that in this group, but what we're hoping is just to have a conversation about what's going on. I know that there's a lot of good things happening, and maybe people don't, maybe each other, different agencies maybe don't know about that sometimes. We can get ideas from each other, and then hopefully there's some really key priority areas that hopefully we can identify as a group that could benefit just from some partnership, or maybe things looking a little bit differently than they do right now as far as how we all work together. So, without further ado, Andy Hubley, take it away.
All right. Thanks, everybody. My name's Andy Hubley. I work with ARDC, the Arrowhead Regional Development Commission. I know most of you, or at least a good portion, but I think what I'd like to do is some introductions. I'm a transportation planner by trade, primarily. ARDC is a quasi-governmental political subdivision, which normally makes people fall asleep. Basically, we're a regional government entity that's here to help the region and the communities within the region achieve their visions. And I've been doing this for about 15 years, and some of my initial work was with the Gitchigami Trail. There's been many other active living projects before we even called it active living. It's something I've personally been very involved with around the region. And I think the momentum around the region, as you saw different communities working on these things, has really taken off even within the past 2 or 3 years. With the Safe Routes to School program, which was very well funded and funded a lot of community transportation plans essentially, to now the Healthy Northland. The Healthy Northland project, which is a federal funded project that goes through the Community Health Board, and ARDC is responsible for many components of that process. And they do have their new website up and running. It's not complete yet, but this will be your primary source of information regarding health, transportation, and some other key health items in northern Minnesota. So why don't we do introductions? We'll go ahead and start with Tim. Just tell us who you are, why you're here.
Tim Nelson, Cook County Planning Director.
Lenny Blomquist, the City of Grand Marais, the Street Department.
Dave Churchstick, City of Grand Marais Parks Department.
Mike Roth, the Grand Marais City Administrator.
I'm Dave Betts, Cook County Engineer.
Bruce Martinson, Cook County Commissioner.
Joni Christensen, Public Health Coordinator for Cook County.
Jay Keefe, Cook County Administrator. Gary Campbell, Cook County Administrator.
And Teresa Mora, our registered nurse at South Dakota Clinic.
David Flair, and I'm attorney at South Dakota Clinic.
Harris Mills, CTG Coordinator from Grand Portage.
Bob Camp for Grand Portage.
Paula Schaefer, and Health Services Director in Grand Portage.
I'm Patty Nordahl from Birch Grove Foundation, and I'm also working with the SHIP grant with GDS and Birch Grove School.
Tim Kennedy, Grand Marais City Council, also city's representative to the Active Living Steering Committee.
Brian Anderson with the Minnesota Department of Transportation.
April McCormick, I'm the Secretary Treasurer for Grand Portage.
All right. Given the time we have, today's meeting, as my understanding, is mostly educational. The group, the Active Living Committee, brought ARDC in to help facilitate the discussion regarding policy. It's not my job, even though ARDC has been very involved in active living over the years and has even produced a policy template that people can see. It's not really my job to dictate exactly what the county should be doing regarding policy. I'm here as a facilitator and a discussion coordinator, I guess you could say. That's my role here today. I think we saw plenty of definitions of what active living is. I think active living means something different to everybody. Primarily, we view it as being aware of how you can be active as part of your daily routines. So instead of driving, how about walking or biking to do your activities? This isn't necessarily going out to be purposefully active, although it certainly plays into it. But it's maybe instead of driving your car with your bike on the rack to the bike trail, how can you bike to the bike trail type situation? And we look at that and a variety of other things. I think when we talk about policy, in any planning process that I work with, in most of the transportation planning work you see in Northeast Minnesota, oftentimes, probably way more often than not, involves ARDC and our crew. But we have policies. There's policies that are must, though you have a policy that's a requirement, all the way down to the advisory and education component. I think the question that most people are going to try to have answered through this process is where on this scale do the entities involved in this process lie, and what can be worked with in the future with the elected officials to advance these ideas of active living in the area. So I think that's one of the process, that's a summary of what the process is and how it ends up and what vision comes out of these meetings. There's 5 meetings, today being the first, and we should be wrapping this up in May with some sort of documentation of what the Active Living Policy Committee wants to put forward to the elected officials of Cook County, Grand Marais, and Grand Portage. Did I misstate any of that? Okay. So what I wanted to talk about initially is just what people thought current assets for active living are in Cook County. Just shout out whatever you want, and we can talk about different things that exist already that are good in the county regarding active living. And don't be shy. Policies, infrastructure.
I think people here that are interested in
So these are our assets. Don't worry about my writing, I can read it. So.
Our trails.
Want to be more specific at all?
Well, we've got a wealth of trails, whether they're hiking, skiing, biking, snowmobiles. There's, trails that go throughout this county, and people out on them are pretty active.
All right. Other ideas?
Lucy Mountains.
What about back to that active living idea, things you can use every day? We have sidewalks in some places.
5 shoulders in some cases. Bike racks. Crosswalks.
Our new wives here.
I see within the towns or developed areas, the distances are very walkable or bikeable.
Organizations like the Ski and Run Club, Bike Club, help promote active living.
Maybe nature, natural beauty. People like to be out. Oh, lakes.
We have lots of paddling options compared to a lot of places.
A lot of what?
Paddling.
Paddling, right.
Well, low crime.
Lake Superior.
That says Big Ol' Lake, but
I think there's kind of goes with that trails and then also our environment and maybe a little bit of what Lauren was saying about we have an inherent connection with the land here, and whether it's hunting, gathering, gardening, being out paddling the lakes, it's a lot easier for us in this region versus some county in maybe Hennepin County in the cities. It seems like some of the comments where you go outside and you see all the things that you need to do, or you experience it, you live it every day. It's not something you do maybe 30 minutes during
World's best donuts. And what that represents basically is that we have a community where there are things, where there's the farmer's market and the entities in our community that people walk to get to.
Yeah, that destination idea is a big one. Anybody ever been to Seattle? Tons of destinations, tons of crosswalks, but they're spread out so badly that they're not focused, and you end up, it's almost impossible to do.
But we can do it. We just need dates.
Right.
And a trail.
I'd say engage stakeholders, such as the law enforcement, county highway department, city.
People are paying attention.
We could add state to that. Brian's been very active attending our meetings. That connectedness has been really beneficial as well.
Yeah, but it's Brian.
I know, but he's still a good voice for us. He doesn't always bring his paint along, but he's a good voice for us.
Brian worked at ARDC for several years before he joined MnDOT, so I oftentimes pick on him at meetings. Yes?
When you mentioned Seattle, where they're spread out, I guess it would be an asset to say that things are rather compact. We have compaction, accessibility. I mean, if I'm going to see somebody from someplace, I'm probably going to see them on Wisconsin Street.
About the AEOA transit.
Oh, businesses that are complementary, like not these towns as small have their own bike shop kind of thing. Probably fits with some of that other.
All right. All right. Now we're going to go on to barriers. What are current barriers to being active in Cook County?
Weather.
Too hot?
That would be true.
I'd have to say social convention is a big one.
You're going to have to explain those big words.
Well, the issue is who walks and why, and who doesn't and why not. I think there's a certain amount of status surrounding those issues in many cases.
I put the funding for projects, would it be state bonding, state aid road funds, or federal funding?
Typically, you've got infrastructure funding, which tend to be pretty high price things, and you've got program funding, which also can be expensive.
Probably would be demographics. And if you look at structures that are built within high population areas for the aging population, they tend to concentrate all of the relevant needs within a complex so that a person has access in our community with our population centers, things like that, and our demographic aging population. That is an issue relative to accessibility. It's hard for me to see that weather is actually a barrier. Might be more aptly said that good clothing is a barrier.
Well, it's snow removal.
It's a money thing, but the ongoing maintenance kind of get the snow removal. Or sidewalk maintenance, street maintenance.
There's two kinds of maintenance. Short, which is snow removal type things, and long, which is tearing the road up and repaving it, tearing a trail up and repaving it as it needs to be done.
spread out remoteness.
You know, one asset that is there, but it can be construed both ways, is we have lots of public land.
Seems like there's a big challenge with the population fluctuations. Population fluctuations. To plan and build and paying for year-round versus, but then also to accommodate some, fishermen's picnic here.
Yeah, do you build infrastructure for the crowd that's here for Fisherman's Picnic? Or do you build infrastructure for the people that are here, for example, today? Yes, sir.
I think we could say that time is a barrier, but we might want to say time/planning, because a lot of time issues revolve around planning.
I live next to college students, and when the big snowstorm hit in December, they left their house for their job or school at the same time they left the night before or the day before. And they quickly learned that it doesn't work that way when you're living off campus. The sidewalk is not shoveled for you. So.
And something else, but this go either way, decision makers. We can facilitate the process, or we can be a barrier. We are can be the gatekeepers of what's going to happen. But I would say decision makers can be a barrier.
I like the gatekeeper idea.
Crossing Highway 61.
I put access to Birchwood Apartments and beyond, and access from Great Expectations School to Highway 61. And Gwen brought up access on Fifth Avenue.
That's how like the connections.
And I'm not sure how to state this, it kind of goes with that infrastructure and grant pieces. Sometimes being so rural, that the larger grants have so many parameters involved with evaluation and responsibility. The money would be great, and Brian can maybe help me with what I'm trying to say, but the expectations of how we use the money don't fit our small communities. So we'd like the funding without all the barriers.
Red tape and my old boss used to say, we don't live in a democracy, we live in a grantocracy.
Oh gosh.
I know that the seniors I talked to said the Hill in town, in particular, the Hill is a big challenge.
I can say that damn hill because I live on the hill in Duluth, and I got a bicycle this summer, and I learned the hill intimately. Not with my face, but I've had some close calls.
How about parking for those of us who have to drive anywhere to get to a biking or walking destination?
That's not going to exist in the future. You have to walk or bike to that destination.
Even from Lutzen, that's not a barrier. Brian's working on that one.
And the other thing, you have this way, right of way, limited right of way.
Yeah, a lot of times there isn't nearly as much right of way for a roadway, for example, as you think there is.
We have how.
Oh, I don't want to bring Brian up again.
Well, I'm thinking even within our small community, within our departments, we're limited with number of peoples, and that could maybe, as you're prioritizing even, and maybe I'm not gonna speak for you, but, you know, you have to decide where your staff's gonna be working in the summer, and maybe some of these projects would be priority, but they can't be because you have to be somewhere else.
Sometimes, yep.
Okay.
How about signage, so people know where to go?
That's a good one.
Signage is not underlined as being spelled incorrectly on Word anymore. That was a big deal to us planners. It's now a word. It was a proud moment when I got the new version and typed it in. It doesn't have grantocracy yet, though. So again. All right. Well, we'll take this information, and we've, like Kristen said, we've done so many things in the past that we can glean from. We'll put it together, but this kind of gives you attendees some ideas as to what active living means to you and the people around you, and different things that can be expected. I was asked to talk about a couple of elephants in the room. My daughter's favorite joke, she's 6 years old, is, what do you get when you cross an elephant and a rhinoceros? Elephino. Her teacher did not appreciate it as much as I did. Sometimes what happens at home stays at home, you know. It wasn't as bad as when she said, what did the fish say when it hit the wall? Damn. All right, some elephants in the room. Number one. How much is active living going to cost? And who's going to pay for it? I think the money fear oftentimes is associated with complete streets. The word complete streets. I think many of you know, but complete streets is a planning or infrastructure hot word right now. The city of Duluth has passed a complete streets policy in which they say something. Grand Marais has not completed a complete streets policy, but they've added complete streets into many other policies. The city of Hibbing wrote a complete streets policy and did not pass it. So there's different things out there in complete streets. The big one is it every road every time? The fear being that when a rural county road, for example, is built, if the complete streets policy is in place, that road would be built with wide shoulders, curb and gutter, a boulevard, a bike lane, and a sidewalk on both sides of the street, even if it's only got one house on it for 15 miles. Obviously, that's not going to happen because it would be much too expensive. So most complete streets policies have advisory portions and then required portions that say when a complete street should be done and when it should be thought about and analyzed, but maybe not, doesn't need to be done. In the Hibbing one, for example, they had different complete streets ideas for different zones of their zoning policy, their land use policy. So if a developer came into an area and wanted to put a house every acre, this was back in the days when we were building houses. I don't know if anybody's noticed, they don't build as many as they used to. If they do it on the acre, then they have to have this kind of street. And if they do it every 5 acres, it has to be this kind of street, etc. So it's not likely to be every road every time, but it would provide guidance as to when it's a full complete street or something else. That's the types of policies that complete streets offer. So it doesn't have to be wildly expensive. and it doesn't have to be for every road. Any other questions about that type of complete streets or cost or concerns? Again, the policy could be something very advisory, or it could be something requiring something. I think we have to shake that out over these 5 meetings and see where it's at. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I would just say relative to this cost issue that given our community, I think that Kristen's comment about think about it and then plan for it in the future. You know, look, not in the future, she said, plan for it up front. And I would agree that having the discussion is hugely important. And I think for decision makers to be mindful of this, that is the beginning point. And your continuum that shows an advisory role as opposed to a must. That as a small community, that is one of the elements that we are looking at as what we would determine as a detriment on the one side, but it's also an asset in the context that we have more control of what we choose to do as a community because of our size. I think if you look at Vancouver is a community that thought through how they wanted to be laid out and accessible, and looking at the group that not only resides there, but the people that visit there, and how you can experience Vancouver. So relative to the cost issue, I think it's hugely important to put the emphasis on the fact that we want to be mindful that when decisions come before us, we are able to respond with that mindfulness of how we want our community to become.
Good.
You know, I think even taking that one step further, Gary, you know, it's almost like if we're mindful of the direction we want to head, we need to be aware of what the community is telling us as elected officials. And if they want sidewalks, ways to promote active living, we have even an obligation to adopt policies and look at ways that we can make that happen. It's not just being mindful, but it's being involved and proactive to create the kind of policies and environment where those decisions get made to reflect what the community wants. So I think that it goes even beyond that concept of mindful, but it actually gets us more involved with looking at our role as decision makers.
We even taken that a little further than that, Tim.
Go right ahead.
Is the distinction between when we as the public entity and looking at the almighty dollar sign up at the top of the page would choose to plug something in as our own in a project, and those times with which a private developer would come in and we would make that a requirement. You know, those are two very different distinctions as when we as a public entity would do something or when we would require a developer to do it. And that's the balance that the commissioners and the city council have to take into consideration.
Yeah, and I just want to echo on that. I think that getting hung up on the continuum of must to advisory is a mistake. If we're asking, what are we willing to do ourselves, there shouldn't be a fear of forcing ourselves to do something we decided was the right thing to do. So being on the must side of the continuum, for those types of decisions where we're saying we intend to do this, that's not scary to me. Now, if people are much more concerned about imposing rules on other entities or private people, that's a different situation. I can see a need to be more concerned about it. But most of what I would expect we will talk about in a policy like this is what do we think is important to do and what do we intend to do ourselves to make this stuff happen. It has to be that intentional. It has to be, we're going to do that, we're going to do that. I think about just complete streets as an idea. The city certainly, and I would even say the county, isn't such a big place that we couldn't in the next 5 months say, these are the segments of streets we think need to be complete streets. They're ours, we control them, we know what we want to do with them, we intend to do it. We're not telling anybody else what they have to do. we're responding to what the community's asking, we're making an evaluation ourselves, and we can come up with a list. And I don't think it has to be a policy that's more only waiting for decisions to come to us, going through an evaluation process. I've seen a lot of policies like that. It just doesn't seem relevant to us. We should be saying, no, this is the spot right here that we want to have an ability to travel with different modes of transportation. And we're going to go make that happen.
That is an important distinction. I think the other thing to keep in mind is looking at ways so that you're not having that same conversation again in 10, 15, 20 years. So that if a developer or somebody builds something and then it becomes a problem and the community is back to trying to fix it after the fact. I think that works full circle. And I would say that this group should be prepared to talk about policies and requirements for developers. At least a discussion. Yes, Bruce.
The elephants in the room, this is a concern that I have, and it's a concern of Dave's too. The reallocation of limited resources, concentrating them on one area rather than spending the money throughout the county. It would not apply for bonding money or federal grant money. In the case of use of state road dollars and county funds. You think that's an issue that you have to deal with all the time?
Absolutely. And it's, honestly, a must on a road could mean that the road gets bypassed and the money goes someplace else. That's the truth, because it gets too expensive. We've got north of $50 million in backlog, and I get $1.5 million a year to build something. So, a must is hard. We're going to do the sidewalk on 5th Avenue. That's costing us $50 a foot for one side. That's a lot of money.
Yeah. I don't think anybody ever said it was going to be easy.
Yeah, I know. So that's the hard part about the must is there's roads that may need it, but if the musts jack prices, and so and we run into this all the time. It's what do you have to do? Lots of roads need to be rebuilt, but I can't afford to rebuild them because of right-of-way restrictions or environmental restrictions or any of the other restrictions that are put on us for getting the work done.
Yep. Rural America has said for 75 years that the automobile is the way to get around, and the road becomes the must and everything else is an add-on. And I think what we're looking at now is increasing the mindfulness of the add-ons as viable transportation. And is the road a must or is the sidewalk a must? What's more important? The road that's perfect for cars only, or is there room for other things? And that's what we have to be exploring. You had a comment?
Yeah, I was just going to say relative to the discussion on how we prioritize as a community. I mean, being responsive to identified needs, that collective voice of the community should say, we understand that we have limited resources. There are creative ways of approaching some things, but there are just factually dollars that need to be spent in order to accomplish others. And so in that context, anything that we collectively as a community say that we want to do this with our limited resources by reallocating, as a commissioner, I'm in support of that as long as it reflects the whole. And without the empathy or recognition of the realities of our, a highway department or those that would have to be able to facilitate this process, it could be, you know, compared, you reference your daughter and some of the learning experiences there, that when the kid comes in and says, I want Nikes, and you say, why? Your tennis shoes look great. And it's because that's what everybody's wearing. I, as a parent, need to know based upon my resources where I'm going to allocate those based upon real identified need. So it is a process that you struggle and wrestle with, and hopefully as you go through it respectfully, we as a community will identify where we want to allocate the limited resources or find ways in order to be able to accomplish what we envision. And I know from my personal experience, when I've had people asking for things that I cannot afford to do at the moment, that my mindfulness of it is there to inform me at the point when opportunity creates a situation where now I can address it. And it's better steward of that limited resource. So that's just sort of how I see this whole thing is letting us as a community identify need and address and empathize with our limited resources and apply what we can.
Yeah, and to try and put as much brain power on an issue as we can through, you know, community input. When my kid comes to me for shoes, my answer is always the same: ask grandma. And there's a lot of grandmas out there. And if we're mindful of the situation and we know a county highway project's coming up and we know that we also want a sidewalk on that, well, maybe we can go find a grandma.
Well, David's feeling
Yeah, but
like
then you're
grammar
throwing
right
in,
now.
but here's the thing is, yeah, you can go throw in, I would use Fifth Avenue West. Yeah, let's throw some federal aid on that. Yeah, then you've just added a year to the design process and $30,000 worth of labor just to get the road done, and then another $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 worth of testing requirements. Then you've got these MnDOT auditors breathing down your neck, telling you that you can't make engineering judgments, that they know better than you do. Federal money, federal grants are no fun, period.
Yep.
I think that comes back to what you were saying earlier is, how do we, if we know our current issues or our problems, how do we come up with a solution that best benefits our community, you know? And so, you know all of those regulations,
Right.
you know exactly what's gonna happen as you're building that road, but how can we try to look for other opportunities
Well, I think,
to still solve the problem?
you know, I'm sounding a little negative on this, but, and I don't mean to be, because, you know, my goals are, I'm doing a sidewalk next year, just a little sidewalk project just next year, or this spring, and so I'm in favor of it. I was a city engineer, and I believe in sidewalks, and I believe in trails. They get used a lot, but they're really expensive, and with dwindling dollars, you know, you've got asphalt prices going like this, and I got my dollars going like this. You know, and then you come into a situation where your roads are bad, and that's the number one part of my job is roads. You know, we add shoulders when we can, and that's a safety thing for motorists and pedestrians and bicyclists and all that stuff. It's a big thing, but it turns into these nightmares that go. So we try to do the best we can, and we're mindful. You know, there's projects in there that are always going to be sidewalks are going to be in our thoughts. Shoulders will always be in our thoughts. We're doing the Gunflint, and you know, we got stepped on that with federal requirements, and so we weren't able to do what we wanted to do. But we're going to put as much shoulder as we can and still stay within the rules. So you know, and that's the big thing is we just kind of do with what we can. And that's where I worry about the must. The must is a problem.
Well,
The best we can is really where we're coming from.
and there are communities out there that do these things, so we're going to explore how do they get them done too. So there's other ideas out there as well. Bruce.
About common sidewalk project, when I'm thinking of one in front of the hospital clinic on Second, and that was brought up, Moving Matters Walk, you know, with Oberstar, and they got moving, further from that walk.
Well, we had a plan for, we probably almost since I got here.
Yeah, but I
that
think
walk.
it put it up forefront.
I'm going to end it there. We have reached our time today, and we promised we'd be very mindful of everybody's time. We know how busy everybody is. The next meeting date and time is February 6th at 12 p.m. noon at this location. We'll send out information prior to that meeting that will help prepare people. We hope that people can make that meeting, and we'll really get into some of the nuts and bolts at that time. As part of this meeting, we did plan an activity. We are an active policy committee, so we will all be curling. I hope everybody's prepared. Not really.
Will there be more time for elephants in the room?
Yep.
At the next
Yep, you bet.
Can I ask about the location date for the next meeting? It was brought up that it might be, since there's so many, well actually, so we've got the city, the county, the West End, and Grand Portage all here today. And the idea was brought up of moving the meetings, or at least, doing maybe one out of the 5, if not anything more, in Grand Portage, just to share the drive load. What would people think about? I haven't asked anyone in Grand Portage if this is okay.
We have to walk.
I guess we have to, what I'm saying is we need to determine where the final meeting is going to, or not the final, the next meeting is going to be held in February. And I don't know if we can do that today or not, but would Grand Portage be a possibility, do you think? Or would it be better to wait till later in the process?
We'll be happy to host any one of the rest of the 4 meetings, so.
Right, well, we'll be in touch regarding the exact location. But as somebody said, you are required to bike or walk there. And nobody can complain because I come from Duluth, so. All right. Thanks, everybody, for coming. Any final words? No?